On March 22nd, 2021, GN would get the first Flashlight FC on the Unforgiving, a 52-minute, 58-second gauntlet, the longest Osu standard beat map in the entire game. This play sent shockwaves throughout the Osu community, and some people were hailing the score as the greatest score ever set in Osu history. For his dedication and efforts, he earned what was at the time a 1000 PP score, a $727 bounty, and the permanent player title of Champion Above Champions. Why do I mention this? Well, what often goes overlooked is that 4 months later, Kalanluu would get the second Flashlight FC on the Unforgiving. While his score did get a lot of praise, it didn't receive as much recognition as it probably should have. He set what was also a 1000 PP score at the time, but it's mostly overshadowed by GN's play that came before his. What can't be denied about both of these scores is that they are two of the craziest scores of all time. I mean, they had to memorize a 53-minute long marathon from beginning to end without making a single mistake. They take what is considered to be normal and throw it in the trash. But months later, Kalanluu decided to take his skill and break the game with it. And you just have to see the results yourself to believe it. This video is sponsored by Surfshark. Surfshark is an app and extension that allows you to virtually travel the world by allowing you to connect to the internet as if you are located in a different part of the world. This allows you to bypass any region locks on YouTube or any other streaming service. For example, The Office has been removed from Netflix in the United States, but with Surfshark, I'm able to set my virtual location to the UK, and now I can watch all 9 seasons of The Office. This works for Crunchyroll as well. Say I wanted to watch Ping Pong the animation, which has a massive region lock. I can place myself in Spain, and now I can watch the show in its entirety. Surfshark also encrypts your data to give you extra peace of mind while you browse the internet. Now you can stay safe browsing the web on public networks. The best part is that all you need is just one account to secure yourself and gain access to all the features Surfshark has to offer on unlimited devices. And if you sign up with the link in the description and use code NERDINESS, you will get an additional 83% off and 3 months of Surfshark absolutely free. Thank you to Surfshark for the sponsor. Now let's get back to the video. The 1000 PP barrier took 12 years since Osu's release to be broken for the first time. In fact, it still remains one of the hardest achievements Osu has to offer, but given the right player with the right skill set, they can set a myriad of 1k PP scores like it's nothing. But why do I say the right player with the right skill set? It's because that the PP system tends to discriminate when it comes to different skill sets. As of right now, there are 112 1k PP scores, and after the new proposed rework is released, that number will climb to 126. Out of all of these plays, the variety of these 1k PP scores is rather disappointing. A lot of the 1k PP plays have one thing in common: double time. By far, the most common way to set a 1k PP play is to use double time. This more or less puts 1k PP plays into one of two categories: high-speed cross-screen jumps or insanely fast streams. And this lack of variety amongst all 1k PP scores is way more oversaturated than you might think. Out of the current 112 1k PP plays, only 4 of them do not use double time. Only 4! Post-rework, just 6 of the 126 1k PP plays don't use double time. If you look at it this way, these plays are very scarce. While it is possible for someone to break the 1k PP barrier without the use of double time, it might be more practical to use double time if someone wants to set these scores at a higher rate. The only 4 plays that are exceptions to this are Repersion's plays on My Heart Will Go On and Road of Resistance, and Kalanluu's plays on This Place Will Grow and Because Maybe Part 3. Repersion's scores are done with hidden hard rock, and while these scores do not use double time, with how difficult these scores are and considering they still use 2 difficulty increasing mods, it makes sense for these to be 1k. Kalanluu's plays, on the other hand, Kalanluu's plays are completely f***ing ridiculous. Kalanluu's 1k PP plays make the use of halftime, easy, and flashlight, a completely bizarre combination of mods to the majority of players. While most players tend to use these mods on their lonesome or other mods entirely, the combination of these 3 mods together highly complements Kalanluu's insane memorization and reading capabilities. I mean, these plays look like this, which is probably impossible for all of our brains to process. But for Kalanluu, these plays are nothing out of the ordinary. On May 8th, 2022, Kalanluu set a 1k PP score on This Place Will Grow with Easy, Halftime, and Flashlight. At the time, this was his top play, and it came as an absolute shock to everyone. This play is so ridiculous, people couldn't even believe it even happened in the first place. With this combination of mods, this map essentially turns into a half-hour memorization test that only a select few players are capable of. Yet, Kalanluu is the only one to do it. In fact, not only is he the only FC with Easy, Halftime, and Flashlight, he is the only pass with that mod combination. But for Kalanluu, apparently this is just another day in the office, because 3 months later, he ended up doing this. On August 5th, 2022, Kalanluu broke the PP record with a 1,253 PP play on Because Maybe Part 3 with Easy, Halftime, and Flashlight. Thankfully, he missed, otherwise the PP record would have been a 1,300 PP play, which I'm pretty sure would have given all of us a goddamn heart attack. With this mod combination being much more obscure in comparison to other mod combinations, the community doesn't really know how much plays like this should be worth. With Vaxei, for example, pretty much everyone agrees that this map is overrated and needs to be nerfed. Everyone is familiar with jump aim since the community has seen a lot of plays involving jumps, and probably everyone has played jump maps themselves. With Easy, Halftime, and Flashlight, however, barely anyone in the community outside a very small portion of players use this combination of mods, and there are barely any plays like this being set in the first place. For most of us, it is very believable that this play should stand as the PP record, but Kalanluu himself and the next proposed PP rework would say otherwise. In the proposed rework, this play will be 894 PP, but Kalanluu himself said this play should only be worth around 700. I reached out to him for his insight into why he believes his score is overweighted, and he gave me a really in-depth explanation. He is the one setting these scores after all, so it's safe to say he knows what he's talking about. Firstly, he believes that the PP system should only account for the skill needed during each play, not the practice needed to be capable of setting said play. While an EZHTFL score on Because Maybe takes months to memorize, setting the play itself only requires a few minutes of execution and memory. Of course, remembering where every single object is, when to hit them, and staying consistent for that long is really difficult. But in Kalanluu's eyes, the PP system factors in the practice required to set these plays way too much. In other words, the process of memorization is overly rewarded. He also talks about the flashlight nerfs that the new rework will implement, a flashlight nerf for burst heavy maps, as well as a flashlight nerf for lower approach rates. The burst map flashlight patch is put into place because burst maps with flashlight are bugged, and considering that his play on Because Maybe has a lot of bursts, it probably was the catalyst for this bug being shown and prompted its removal. But the more interesting point he brings up is the flashlight nerf with lower AR. Normally, lower approach rates make reading much more difficult. This is especially true with Easy, as it makes every map much more condensed and cluttered. But with flashlight, the opposite is true. According to Kalanluu, this nerf is being put into place because the lower AR makes each object way more visible and makes the memorization process easier. While this might be hard to believe for most of us, remember that this is the same guy that sets these scores on a regular basis. He's the one that has grown accustomed to playing like this, and is way more knowledgeable about this sort of thing than most of us. These changes bring down his play from a 1,253 PP play to an 894 PP play, but Kalanluu believes that even this is still too high. The final point he brings up is that ultra-long marathon maps are overweighted, and that flashlight shouldn't give much of a length bonus. The amount of PP a map gives scales with how long a beat map is. After all, it's much harder to hold an FC during a 10-minute map than it is a 1-minute map, and so this makes sense. But Kalanluu believes that flashlight shouldn't take the beat map's length into much account. A no-mod play on Because Maybe Part 3 is already super long, clocking in at 17 minutes. But halftime effectively increases the length of any beat map. While it might slow things down and make things easier, it increases the length of the beat map and the length bonus that a beat map gives. On Because Maybe Part 3, halftime changes the play from a 17-minute marathon to a 23-minute nightmare. The length bonus increases even if halftime remains on its lonesome, but throw in flashlight on top of it, and now you effectively have two things that scale with the longer duration of the beat map: the flat length bonus of the beat map itself, as well as the use of flashlight. Kalanluu believes that this in particular is kind of broken, and that flashlight shouldn't give much of a length bonus to begin with. Now this is kind of extreme to get your head around, especially considering that the longer a beat map gets with flashlight, the more you have to memorize. But it's interesting seeing things from the perspective of someone who specializes in this particular playstyle. Things like this are best left to the people who know the ins and outs of the playstyle, and Kalanluu without a doubt fits the bill for that. But what do you think about this? How much PP do you think Kalanluu's play on Because Maybe Part 3 should be worth? Let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and like the main menu says, see you next time.